Frustration from parents of Parkland victims.
I am so beyond disappointed and frustrated.
As jurors make their recommendation, one last public January 6 hearing.
He must be accountable.
Before the midterm elections. And the Dolphins' #1 quarterback returns to practice but is not eligible to play, leaving a rookie to make his first NFL start. These stories and more coming up on Newsbreak.
Hello, South Florida. I'm Amanda Gray.
I'm Elena Key. Today is Friday, October 14, 2022.
Live from the South Florida Media Network's Biscayne-based studios in North Miami, this is SFMN Newsbreak.
Life in prison, that's the sentence for Parkland mass murderer Nikolas Cruz, as jurors stopped short of calling for the death penalty. Sadness and outrage at the courthouse from the family members of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas school shooting victims. As the network's Leanne Abu Tarbouche reports, at least one juror felt the mitigating factors outweighed the heinousness of the crime.
At the Broward County Courthouse, many families were disappointed to know the Parkland shooter Nikolas Cruz gets life in prison instead of the death penalty. It's been more than 4 years since Nikolas Cruz murdered 17 people at Stoneman Douglas High School. Families of the deceased and survivors crowded the courtroom to hear the jury's recommended penalty. They had hoped for the death penalty, but after sitting through a 7-hour jury deliberation, tears were shed and many families left disgusted that he had been spared. The victims' families will be allowed to make statements in November, but the judge cannot overturn the jury's decision.
I sent my daughter to school and she was shot 8 times. I am so beyond disappointed and frustrated with this outcome. I do not understand. I just don't understand this.
The jury rejected the death penalty after 3 jurors voted for life in prison. The sentencing trial is now set for November 1st. Reporting for the South Florida Media Network, Leanne Abu Tarbouche. 5 people, including an off-duty officer, are pronounced dead after a mass shooting in Raleigh, North Carolina. Nearby residents were mandated to stay indoors after the shooter opened fire around 5 o'clock last night. Police confirmed 5 deaths and 2 injured victims. 1 man has been taken into custody for further investigation.
Surprise in our nation's capital this morning after members of the January 6th committee recommend appealing for testimony from former President Trump. As Victoria Duran from our D.C. Bureau reports, they met yesterday for their 9th public hearing.
It's been nearly 2 years since the January 6th attack on the Capitol, and the House committee investigating it has just met for the final time.
We are obligated to seek answers directly from the man who set this all in motion.
In a unanimous decision, the January 6th committee has voted to subpoena former President Donald Trump for testimony in this investigation. Members of the panel made the argument that Trump is a clear and present danger to democracy.
This is a question about accountability to the American people. He must be accountable.
The committee showed never-before-seen footage inside the Capitol the day of the attack, as Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi and other congressional leaders rushed to safety and made calls to U.S. defense officials for help.
Secretary of DOD. Why don't you get the president to tell them to leave the Capitol, Mr. Attorney General, in your law enforcement responsibility? A public statement they should all leave.
The committee received nearly 1 million documents from the Secret Service, including evidence that officials knew days before January 6th of the attack that was going to occur. One email from December 26 from a Secret Service field agent relayed a tip detailing that the Proud Boys plan to march into Washington, saying they will outnumber the police so they can't be stopped. Their plan is to literally kill people. Please, please take this tip seriously and investigate further.
Thanks to the tireless work of our members and investigators, we have left no doubt, none, that Donald Trump led an effort to upend American democracy that directly resulted in the violence of January 6th.
The final report of the panel's finding was expected to be released prior to next month's midterm election, but now it looks like it won't be until the end of the year. Reporting for the South Florida Media Network in Washington, D.C., Victoria Duran.
A no from the Supreme Court this morning to a request from former President Trump. The justices denying the request yesterday. Last week, the former president asked the High Court to reverse a federal appeals court order blocking a special master from reviewing the classified documents seized from Trump's South Florida estate. This could have created an opportunity for Trump's legal team to review the documents. However, the Supreme Court denied the request, and the lower court order still stands.
Ahead of elections, Governor Ron DeSantis has decided to ease voting rules in Florida counties hit by Hurricane Ian. Yesterday, the Florida governor issued an executive order extending early voting and allowing voters to cast ballots at any precinct. Residents can also request mail-in ballots to be sent to an address other than their homes. These changes apply to 3 GOP strongholds: Lee, Charlotte, and Sarasota.
Cubans continue fleeing the country in record numbers to escape economic and socio-political oppression. Many settle in Miami. Reporter Lidia Delgado from our D.C. Bureau has more information on the migration crisis.
Activists and academics who focus on Cuba gathered at Georgetown University in the nation's capital to talk about what they call a crisis on the island that has driven some 177,000 people to leave just since last year.
It's almost impossible to get a passport and leave Cuba. The only way they can leave now is, illegally or through sea, or some of these Cubans to get to the United States have to pass by 10 or 11 countries.
FIU alumni Miguel Inda Romero said that the U.S. embargo against Cuba has influenced the humanitarian crisis and would be lifted if Cuba agreed to fair elections, free press, and release political prisoners, efforts that the 63-year authoritarian regime may be reluctant to take.
I don't think we're asking for much. If those 3 things are done, like I said, the embargo is to completely finish. They don't want the embargo to end. That's their way to blaming the United States for their problems.
People have fled due to shortages of food, medicine, and other basic necessities, in addition to political unrest. Cuban content creator Marissa Daniela shared her husband's experience stepping inside a Walmart for the first time.
It was a very emotional experience for him because he had never in his life seen a store so big with everything that you can imagine, all in one store.
Nearly 40 years since the Muriel boat lift, Cubans continue to protest for better living conditions, such as last year over restrictive COVID-19 measures to a few days ago over the lack of electricity.
It's enough, and people have had enough.
As we approach midterm elections, immigration policy becomes a key issue as governors from Texas and Florida continue busing migrants to places like New York and Washington, D.C. For South Florida Media Network in Washington, D.C., Lydia Delgado.
A fun take on fall starts later today in South Florida. The network's Samuel Rodriguez Garcia shows you the 65th anniversary of Oktoberfest in Miami.
What started as a wedding festival by a Bavarian king for his newlywed bride is now an international holiday that is celebrated by Europeans and locals alike here at the German-American Social Club in Kendall. Oktoberfest started in 1810 when King Ludwig I married Princess Therese of Saxe-Hildburghausen. The citizens of Munich were invited to join in a 2-week-long festival and feast to commemorate the union. This festival has transformed into what we know as Oktoberfest, where it continues to bring communities through the ages together.
Like I say, it's the 65th consecutive annual Oktoberfest Miami. We have beer, we have bounce houses for kids, and that's something I really like about this, is that it's a family event where families are happy to come, their kids run around and play on the field, and they have a great time. I see grandparents dancing with grandchildren. I see people just having a good time. People who never come here for any other time come to Oktoberfest, and many of them have been coming for 20 and 30 years.
Oktoberfest kicks off this afternoon at 6 p.m. Tickets are available online or in person. Adults are $13 and kids aged 2 and up are $5. Festivities will be held Friday through Sunday this weekend and also the 21st through the 23rd. With awesome activities for the family, fantastic food, and more beer than your belly can hold, the 65th annual Oktoberfest will be here in Miami, being celebrated in Kendall. This has been Samuel Rodriguez reporting for South Florida Media Network.
The Florida Panthers hoping to start off the new hockey season with a win.
That's still ahead, and so is this story.
I do not plan to have him play.
The Dolphins have cleared Teddy Bridgewater for Sunday's game, but he won't be the team's starting quarterback. Newsbreak will be back in 2 minutes.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
With Julia's autism, loud sounds can be too much.
But she still loves to make music.
Yeah.
Play band. Screening for autism can make a lifetime of difference. Find out more at screenforautism.org.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread and kissed them all soundly.
Lights out.
Good night. And put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
I help our fellows design their paths as creative entrepreneurs. My experiences serving startups, creative businesses, and cultural organizations, and my journey as a queer mixed immigrant with Haitian and Arabic roots, inform the co-creative environment we foster at Radcliffe. We leverage our collective diversity to encourage the building of lifelong personal learning networks and mindsets that stimulate continuous innovation.
The first career start is on the way for Dolphins rookie quarterback Skylar Thompson. The Dolphins are hosting the Minnesota Vikings this Sunday.
The network's Amanda Millan has a preview.
This Sunday, the Dolphins come home to face the Minnesota Vikings after a rough 2 weeks on the road. The Vikings are currently 4-1, sitting at the top of the NFC North. Still, the Dolphins are hoping to bounce back amidst 2 consecutive losses and top quarterbacks being out this week.
Scenario, I don't see him being active, and I'm not gonna. I do not plan to have him play at all. It's something that this whole process is a little tricky, and today he's just getting back to playing football for the first time in 2 weeks. Teddy is currently progressing through the protocol. He feels good.
Both Tua Tagovailoa and Teddy Bridgewater are in the concussion protocol. Bridgewater suffered a nasty hit in the first offensive snap against the Jets this last Sunday. Tagovailoa is still recovering from his back-to-back hits against the Bills and then the Bengals. Rookie quarterback Skylar Thompson will be starting against the Vikings as confirmed by Coach McDaniel. Thompson has been working hard to prepare for his start this week.
I'm a very, mental visualization person, and like to put myself in situations before they happen, and all those types of things, and just having a week of prep, being able to most importantly just build the continuity of the offense with the snap count, the cadences, the protections, timing of routes, all that stuff is so important to build throughout the week, and for me to have a week to build that, build confidence with the guys, and build that trust and timing is going to be really, really important.
Although Tua was seen in practice yesterday looking healthy and happy to be around his teammates again and throwing around a football, Coach McDaniel is still treading lightly and is taking this progress little by little. Star wide receivers Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill are on the injury report. Waddle dealing with a groin injury and Hill with quad and foot injuries. Both are listed as active. The Dolphins have quite the road ahead of them, but have put all efforts forward to get that win on Sunday. This is Amanda Millan, South Florida Media Network.
This morning, Florida Panthers fans celebrate the first win of the season in a score of 3-1, beating the New York Islanders. The teams were tied at the UBS Arena yesterday until the Panthers scored a go-ahead goal in the third period. They added an empty netter to put the game out of reach. Up next, the Cats play on the road in Buffalo tomorrow afternoon.
That's all the time we have for Newsbreak. I'm Elena Key.
I'm Amanda Gray. Get more news anytime at sfmn.fiu.edu.